Welcome to Karpathos, one of the most remote and authentic Greek islands of its size. There is no mass tourism like on Santorini. Actually, there is literally no tourism at all, apart from 2 months here. It's much less crowded than Crete and much more wild than Skiathos. And it's one of the least visited Greek islands of this nature. It's located between Crete and Rhodos, but due to these landscapes, these mountain areas and rugged nature, it attracts much less visitors, and also due to much less flights, it's actually not that easy to get here. I will talk about it later, but this island is so different than other Greek islands you've probably visited. Karpathos is about 50 kilometers long and 6 to 7 kilometers or 6 to 10 kilometers wide. It's like a noodle. And it's virtually divided into two parts, the north part and the south part. And both of them are totally different. It's like two islands in one. There are only 6,500 people living here, and many of them are leaving for winter to USA usually. So when you come in different months than in the summer, you hardly meet anyone. I was hiking around over 100 kilometers, and the first 2 days I haven't met anyone. In other days, I don't think I met any hikers, maybe 2 hikers, and a very few people on touristic friendly spots like beaches or towns. But even in those towns, there were hardly any people now in May. So I would say that this is actually a hiker's heaven. I've visited several Greek islands already, and this is definitely the most remote. It's similar to Gavdos, but it's much more, it's bigger, first of all, but also it's much more variable. There are these mountains and areas which are really, really worth exploring, but it has a downside too, and I will talk about it later on. But yeah, 6,500 people living in this big island, like relatively big island, but considering that I'm coming from a little village in Czechia, and it's very, very little village, there are 3,000 people living, and that's half of the population of this whole island, which is 100 times bigger. And there is even a saying that here are many more goats than people here, which is true. Literally, when you are walking for 10 kilometers, 20 kilometers, 30 kilometers, there is a very high chance that you won't meet anyone. And you see it on those trails that nobody's walking them, that they are marked in the maps, but like overgrown by plants and rock slides. So you are searching for your way most of the time. There are basically 4 bigger villages. I wouldn't even call it a town. Even the main town here, Pigadia, Karpathos town, it's actually there. It's still a village, you would say, I don't know, a capital or a town or a city, but it's a small village. And there are more. There is this main town, Karpathos, Pigadia, where there's a port. And then there is Diafani, which is a little bit to the north, and there is also a port. And then what's left is Arcasa on the west coast and Olympos far in the north, and those are main little hubs on this island. And when you are going to restock, those are your main options. There are still some little tiny villages like here, There are dozens of houses, but there is nobody, there are no people. I see some parked cars, but no people, nothing is moving, everything is static, you know, people are not here. It's half of May and people left, you know, maybe they are still in USA because they are going to USA over winter. And there are many also villages which are abandoned. When I was hiking through the north of the island, there were many traces of, you know, civilization, and not long ago, like a few years ago. And they are abandoned houses, they are abandoned whole villages, and they are also ruins which are older. But people are literally going down to the south from the north part of the island, and that's where they concentrate. Still, even if everyone would move to the main village, Pigadia, it would still not be as crowded as any other Greek island you've probably visited or you know. This is amazing about Karpathos, that there is so much to explore and so few people to meet. And I don't mean it in a bad way. Also, locals are very, very nice. I will get to it later on, but you are just alone here, or you feel alone. And that's so beautiful feeling in this beautiful nature. And what's interesting about this island, that historically women ruled these places here. They own houses, they rule economy, they are taking care of things which usually men do in our society. And the reason for that is that men usually, I'm repeating that for the third time, but it's a famous thing here that men are leaving to USA. Sometimes they stay there, sometimes they come back, sometimes even women are going there for several years. I was talking with the old lady, which is a Taverna, and she left to USA for 47 years. And then she came back and opened her place. So it's very traditional place, and you can feel it from every little trace of civilization you find. On food, on house design, on the way how people live here. The island is divided into two parts, as I said, and the south part it's more developed. There are roads, more houses, more places where you see civilization. At the north part, which is totally remote, and there were even no roads like 20 years ago here. That's why people moved to the south, most of them, because they were relying on donkeys for transporting things and on boats. But the north part, I think there are like two roads heading there, and that's it. Like the most civilization is on the south part, and tourists use this for their advantage, you know. So if you want some social life or even a nightlife, you stay in the south. There are many beautiful beaches here on this part of the island. And if you want solitude, if you want hiking and exploring, you are going to the north, where you find exactly that. But you could have a problem with other things like restocking water and things like that. You can find here big mountains, steep cliffs, many caves, ridges, valleys, deep valleys, beautiful ones like here. Many beaches with crystal clear water, like literally that azure blue, like cartoonish blue sea even, which is like from movies, you know. It feels like paradise. And you come there is nobody there. You have the beach after beach for yourself. So what I'm trying to say is that even when this island is so forgotten, you know, and people are rarely coming here, and those which are coming here, they are often coming back regularly, as I talked with tourists here. And if in this variety you would probably expect a lot of wildlife, which is actually not true. There are mostly, you see many, especially on the north, you see many goats and sheep and donkeys, actually wild donkeys. They are so cute. And lizards and birds, and that's probably it. There is not much more to see, but these three types, like sheep and goats and donkeys, they are everywhere there. And especially on the north, and when you are walking on the north, you are one of few people heading there, so they are scared. They are not used to humans. But there is a mystery. Maybe you can help me to solve it with these animals. What do they drink? Because on this island, I couldn't see a single natural source of water anywhere, drinkable water. Of course, there is sea all around, but no, I couldn't see any springs or rivers or anything, any water, and I have no idea what those donkeys drink. I asked a few people here, locals especially, and got basically three types of responses. One said that they have water from plants, which is hard to believe because we as humans, we need like 2 liters of water per day. And what the donkey can need, like 10 liters at least, and you can't get so much water from that. So I don't know. They say it's like that. But some people even say that they drink salty water. That they adapt it to these conditions because it's very dry, and that they drink salty water. I don't believe this. That's very hard to believe that this type of animals could drink salty water. And the third explanation, what people say, is that there are some hidden sources of water around the island, that there are just few spots and the animals know about it. That's also hard to believe because I couldn't find anything and I explored a lot, but that doesn't mean that it's not possible. There could be something like that. So maybe if you know the answer for this question, let me know. I'm very curious what these animals drink. Oh, and I forgot to mention one thing. On the north, there were several parts with horrible smell. It smells like corpses, like rotten corpses, on many places. And first I was thinking that those are really corpses somewhere around, but then it was often, much more often, and then it was longer. Sometimes it smelled like for 10 minutes, and I didn't know what's that. And then I found out that it's a plant. There is on Karpathos, there is an interesting plant which is huge, like 40 centimeters big flower of that plant, and the bloom itself is like 40 centimeters big, and it's purple and it smells like corpses, literally. So very interesting flora there also on Karpathos. Which brings me to the weather. Karpathos is usually very, very dry. It rains mostly in the winter, and from May till the autumn very, very rarely. Now these clouds here, those are the first clouds basically. After a whole week I'm here, it was just, and it's not raining, and even. So it's very, very dry here, very hot. I got burned in second day actually, and on the Canaries, for example, after 10 days of hiking on Fuerteventura and there is no shade at all, nothing. And here I got burned the second day. So the sun is very strong here. And weather is, on one side you can say it's extreme because it's dry and hot. But on the other side it's nice. It's nice to walk in the sun. And comparing to other Greek islands, there is not much rain here. So you have a very high chance that you will have good weather for hiking. It's literally, from many perspectives, this is really a perfect choice for hikers, Karpathos. Now in half of the May, the day temperatures are like 22 degrees, 20 to 25 degrees, something like that. But with the sun it feels much hotter, especially because it's up and down. It's very vertical, these trails here. So you get sweaty pretty easily and very hot. And the sea is 18 degrees now, which on paper feels cold, but when you are so hot, after hiking, it's a perfect temperature. I couldn't think of a better temperature for hiking, for swimming. 18 degrees when you are totally hot and done and exhausted, swimming in the sea in 18 degrees is perfect. So the weather is nice and good, although in the winter it's much colder here and much more rainy. And in the summer, I don't think is bearable for hiking, because even these days, I was totally exhausted. On some sections, when you are really climbing up, there is 400 meters of elevation up, then down, then up and down. And it's very tiring and very exhausting. And I really can't imagine to hike it later in June or July, for example. And I wouldn't recommend it. I would definitely recommend the spring or the autumn. The disadvantage is that many shops and restaurants, or they are mostly tavernas here, very few restaurants, that they are closed outside of the season, and that limits your restocking option, especially the water, because that's very scarce here. And due to this geographic position between Crete and Rhodos, which is close by, and there are many ferries coming from there, it's also very windy, and it's one of the windiest islands, Greek islands actually. So, and I was lucky, it's not that windy when I'm here, but heard many stories from people who said that it's so windy that you can't even walk in those higher places, because it just blows you off, blows you away. So be prepared for a lot of wind here on Karpathos. And also with the wind, what's interesting is, at least at the time when I was there on Karpathos, is that the wind usually picked up in the evening. So before getting dark and overnight, it was always much more windy. It was the wind was much stronger after or around sunset for some reason. But the wind could be also good in some cases, it cools you down. It's easier for bivouacking because there is less condensation, and also there are no mosquitoes. At least I haven't experienced any. There are parts, actually, like few spots, which are overcrowded by flies, which is super annoying because they are just buzzing around you constantly. And if you are clumsy as me and you fall down and you have some blood marks, which I have constantly, they are searching that, and they are sitting on those, and they just don't leave you alone. Some flies are localized problem. It's on some very few spots, not on around whole island. But the good thing is that there are no mosquitoes. Maybe they come later on in the year, but I doubt it. With this heat and with this wind, it's too hostile for mosquitoes. So really good option for bivouacking. And this is my first hike from the beginning of my hiking, when I didn't take not only tent. I'm usually not taking a tent, but not even a bivouac bag, because first of all, the condensation is low due to that wind. Second, there is very low chance of rain. And third, there are many places where you can sleep covered, like caves and chapels, which are all around the island. They are maybe, 200 chapels around the island. And they are fully open 24/7, fully equipped, and you can sleep on the ground. I had one experience when a local guy came to lit up the candles when I was there in the morning, and he wasn't very happy about it. He didn't kick me out, but he wasn't happy about it. And it wasn't very nice conversation. He wasn't rude, nothing like that. He was just said this is a sacred place, and that's not the best place where to sleep. You know, at least he said at least you should sleep not on the ground, but somewhere in the corner, not in those, you know, sacred, in front of those sacred pictures or something like that. We didn't have any conflict, but on the other hand, there are many remote chapels around the island where nobody's coming. Nobody, literally nobody. The first night I slept in one, and it was so remote that I couldn't even find my way there because those paths they disappeared over the years where nobody's walking them. And yeah, some places are just and in most places where you look around, you can find something covered, like a rock overhang or a cave or a chapel for sleeping. So this is a good island for hiking and bivouacking without a tent. What I really like about Karpathos that everything is local, and most places or all the places where you can eat, those tavernas, they are very local, and they are also proud of their, you know, legacy, their history, their families. So in those places, in those tavernas, you see black and white pictures of previous generations, and they even know each other. I was in a taverna, the northern part of the island, and talked with a lady, and 50 kilometers more to the south, in another taverna, they knew her, and they say, of course we know each other, you know, here. So it's nice because this culture is very strong here. In some of the villages, they even walk in those ropes, you know, those local clothes, and it's very different to populated or touristic friendly islands like, for example, the Rodos, which is right here, I don't know, 30 kilometers from here, where everything is suited for tourists, but here everything is suited for locals. And in those tavernas and bars, they have a lot of local fruit. I had zero issues with finding vegan meals. Sometimes they didn't have it in menu, but they made it for me, like a rice or fried zucchini. That was awesome. It's very simple here. You can't expect menus like on Crete, for example. It's very simple. There are few things they make, and sometimes they tell you, I just make 2 things today. But it's not a bad thing. It's always good. It's always really, really good. The food here, I enjoyed it a lot. It wasn't even that pricey. And I had good experiences with every single place here where I was eating. And I will happy to give you some recommendations. First of all, there is a tavern in the northernmost point of island where there are houses is Avlona. It's called Avlona. After that, there is no road, no nothing. There is just nature and wilderness and no even paths, you know. I was just trying to find a way there, and it was very difficult. So Avlona, it's the last civilized part of the island, and civilized I mean 10 houses maybe, you know. There is nothing more than 10, 15 houses and 1 bar. And there is a old lady, like she was doing all the hard work. She was working on the garden and taking care of animals and cooking. And there is even she provides nights in her. It's not a hostel. It's like a private place. It's her home, and you can pay a bit and sleep there. But I highly recommend this. It's the Taverna Avlona with this old lady. It's the last place where you can restock. There is a tap water in that village, actually not village, 10 houses, as I said, but it's the last place where you can get the water. and nothing after that. I was actually walking from Diafani, from the port, to this place. It took me 2 days by the north coast, and between those places there is nothing. First of all, I haven't met anyone, and second, yeah, some fishermen. I met a fisherman who came from Rhodos actually, but they were just there and going back. But there is no civilization after that, and between those places, if it takes you 2 or 3 days, you have no options to refill water or to get food. So really take a lot of food between those places and a lot of water, especially because in this heat, that's one of the things which I really want to emphasize, is that you need a lot of water, a lot of water. I would say for one day at least 4, but ideally 6 liters of water per day. If you get less, and you would get thirsty, you would get tired, and if you can't refill for 2 or 3 days, it's bad. So I was starting in Diafani with my backpack totally full of water, like half of the weight of the backpack was water. And those fishermen, they gave me actually some. So I don't know what I would do. At the time, I had very few, like maybe half a liter left, and it was half a day to the civilization, or 1 day to the civilization. So I made a mistake. Take ideally 5 or 6 liters of water per day here. Yeah, but I slipped from the Tavernas. I wanted to recommend another taverna, and that's on Apella Beach. It's one of the most beautiful beaches on the island. It's on the east coast. There is a taverna Apella with the waiter named Amor, which is absolutely amazing. If you see it, hi Amor. He's so nice. He's probably the friendliest waiter I've ever met. So nice. We were talking like, I don't know, 10 minutes about things and life and everything. And they make good meals. They adapt it for your needs. It's on a very nice place with a view to the sea. There are beaches right under that, and there is the main beach, which is Apella Beach, which everyone knows here because it's very famous and tourists like that beach. It's just really nice. I actually slept there. But after that beach, there is a path, like little path, over a little hill or mountain. I don't know, it's like 50 meters of elevation gain, or you can swim around like 100 meters or 50 meters if you swim around. There is another beach. And this one is absolutely empty. There is nobody. That beach is, even in crowded months, you won't find anyone there, and you can have a beach for yourself. So Apella Beach, Apella Taverna, really nice one. I was very happy there and got a really good meal. There is also a really nice taverna Folia in a town Spoa. It's a little village, again 10 houses or 15 houses, called Spoa, and the taverna is called Folia. There is also a very nice owner. He made me fried zucchini, the best fried zucchini in my life. So good, so tasty, all homemade, all local. Really good one. I recommend that. It's on a place where it's farther from civilization, and it's the only place where you can eat in that area actually, so it's convenient, but a really good one, yeah. And another taverna which I want to recommend is Parthenon in Olympus village. Olympus, if you are coming to Karpathos, you will definitely come to Olympus because it's a movie-like village with movie-like views. Everyone goes there, and you have to go there because it's so unique and so beautiful. And there is this Parthenon taverna. There are few tavernas there actually, because I think it's the second biggest town here, or village. But this taverna, it's ruled by father and son, very nice and good guys. We had a good talk. They are also proud of their culture. Their ancestors were photographing all the people and all the places around Karpathos, so they have many black and white pictures in the taverna. Also really good meals, and the prices for meals are really affordable here. It's not like in, you know, touristic areas. On the other hand, you will pay a lot on for things like, I don't know, drinks on those beaches, you know, where you can pay 3 euros per little drink in a can. That's more expensive, but the meals itself, they are not. You can, what I usually do is that I buy two, that I have one for lunch and one in a box for a dinner. But when you talk with those people, you find out that it looks very romantic here, and from a perspective of a tourist or a hiker, it is a very romantic place to be and to explore and to hike. But for locals, not that much. That's the reason why they are living for winter very often, because their lives are hard. There is not many places where you can grow something because everything is rocky. The rain is sparse here, and it's not easy to make money here. So I encourage you to be generous with tips. They really appreciate it, these people here, and they deserve it for the attention they give to your meals and to you. If you want to talk, they will talk with, at least with me, I like to talk with people on hikes, and every time I had 15 minutes or longer talks with most of the people here, with tourists, with some tourists too, but with local. They are really happy that you are there, and it helps them, you know, living. So be generous with tips. These guys, they definitely deserve it. When it comes to transport, that's an issue actually here, because there is no bus service here. Sometimes you can see buses. I saw like two on the roads, but I think those are private buses. But there is no regular bus schedule here outside of the peak of the tourism peaks. So it's like half of June, July, August. Then there are some buses which are going maybe twice a day or once per day. But now in half of May, there are no buses at all. So you can't rely on that. You have some options here, although even without buses. First is a taxi. Unfortunately, my experience with the taxi is not that good, and the only reason is price. I think that these taxi drivers, they take advantage of the fact that there are no buses. So when you come to the airport, the main town, the Karpathos town, is, I don't know how, 10 kilometers, 15 kilometers, and you could all either walk there or you can take a taxi, and you pay for those 10 minutes, you pay 35 euros, which is way too much. I think this is not a fair price comparing it to other places, other Greek islands or Canary Islands, where you pay basically less than half here. So it feels sort of like a rip-off to me, the taxi service here. Fortunately, you have more options, and those are much better than that. First is a car rental. Many people here are renting a car for a week, and I think it's like 60 euros. They said, I was hitchhiking, and the lady said that it was like 60 euros for a week, which is ridiculously cheap. It's less than 2 taxi rides, but you can have it for a whole week and you can drive around the whole island. So that's a really, really good option here. But I recommend the 4x4, because some of the roads, especially on the north, they are not suitable for normal cars. Some beaches are not accessible without for the 4x4. There, it's very rocky and many stones and everything, and there are many landslides. On most of the roads where I walked, on all of them, they were landslides, you know. So it's a good option, but I highly recommend 4x4. And what I used actually, and what worked absolutely amazingly, was hitchhiking. I hitchhiked 3 times here because I need to restock, I needed to get somewhere, or because the trail which was marked in the map wasn't there and it was too dangerous. I had to go to the road and hitchhiked for a few kilometers. And you know what? I hitchhiked 3 times, and every single time the first car stopped. This is very unusual. Just my last experience on La Gomera, I was hitchhiking over 2 hours. Hundreds of cars passed and nobody stopped. I had to go to the bus station and go back and several kilometers and take a bus because nobody stopped. Everyone ignored me. And here, 3 times hitchhiking, and 3 times the first car stopped and took me, and everybody was super happy, super positive and nice. And this works really well. There are not that many cars, so maybe you have to wait for some time, but I've never waited for more than 5 minutes. And there was a car and they just took me. Not a problem at all. After I recorded that video, I hitchhiked 3 more times, actually, on Karpathos. And twice the first person stopped, and once the second car stopped. So the experience was literally like that, like every car stops for you. And what was even more interesting is that twice happened to me that I was walking on the road and not hitchhiking, I was just walking, and somebody stopped and asked me if I want to move somewhere, that they can take me. They offered that by themselves, which is amazing. Also, this is not something what you experience on other places usually. So this is a really good option here, hitchhiking. And the last option you can have is a ferry, but with ferry it's very, very limited. Basically, there are only I think 3 ports here, in the main town, in the main Karpathos town, and then in the Afani, and then one in west part of the island. But at least now in half of May, the ferry is going once per week. I was extremely lucky. I don't know how this even happened, but the ferry to the Afani when I wanted to go was going like 2 hours after my flight landed, and it was the only ferry for the whole week. So I was extremely lucky. Without that, I would have to take a taxi for like 200 euros. I don't know, I think it's like 50-60 kilometers, but you would pay 200 euros for that. So ferries, car rentals, buses probably only in July, but still don't count of them because they will be like twice a day. Or hitchhiking, which is probably the best option. And because the taxi to the airport, from the airport to Pigadia was so expensive, I tried to hitchhike the way back, those 10 kilometers or something like that. And obviously the first car stopped. So my conclusion is that you don't even need to pay for that overpriced taxi. You can just hitchhike and somebody will pick you up instantly. And another thing with the airport is very funny, is that it's smaller than a train station on a little village. The airport on Karpathos is basically one hall and few employees, maybe 10 employees, and that's it. So they opened, when I was there, they opened the airport just for that one flight, which was leaving Karpathos, and then they closed it after. So it's really small. I think that in that one hall, or they are 2 halls, one is before the security and one is after. And the security, by the way, is just one line and one person. And into that one hall, I think that only one flight fits. That there is no space for more than those, I don't know, 100 people basically. It's teeny tiny airport, literally. Basically cute little airport. Well, trails, that's a different story. I wanted something remote and I wanted solitude, and I got it 100%. But the other side of this is that many, maybe even most of those trails, they are in maps but in reality you just walk there and you are searching for it, because like here there is a trail actually, but on most of the places on the north you can't find it. You just take a direction, the maps tells you go the direction and just go there. You're all trying to find a way. And this is a tricky thing, because the map tells you that it will take you 2 or 5, let's say 5 hours, but it takes you 10, because you are constantly going back because you got lost and you are searching for something. They are those spiky plants everywhere, so you are scratched. I'm totally scratched on all my legs to the blood. And those trails are not marked well. They were probably some time ago, but not anymore. And you can see when you hike it, when you walk there, you can see that nobody is walking here. That in those places, on those trails, on many of them, you see that nobody is walking there. That you are walking there after maybe years of nobody else being there. Which is tricky, which is really tricky, because it's dangerous. They are those landslides. Sometimes you go on the cliff and there should be a road, and even maps are wrong, you know. First of all, they are very wrong with the elevation. Touristic maps are not precise here like on other places, and they say that it will be 400 meters of elevation gain, but in reality it's 600 or 700, even 50% more. The map tells you in next 3 kilometers there won't be any elevation gain, and you see a 50 meters hill in front of you which you need to hike. So it's not well marked. Sometimes they are those little stones on each other, sitting on each other, which tells you the trail is here. Sometimes there are red marks, but most of the time you just don't see it. Some places are marked better, some worse, but especially on the north part of the island, it's a pain to find those hiking trails. And maybe it's even good, you know, because you come here for remoteness and you come here for this experience, but maybe this is even too much. At least for me it was a bit too much, because constantly looking, searching for a way where to go to not fall somewhere, and sometimes even in maps it's wrongly marked, you know. For example, here on the east part there is a very big cave, like huge cave, like I don't know, 30 meters big cave, huge deep cave with bats and stalactites and stalagmites and everything. It's marked in the map, in one of the touristic maps, it's marked, but on the wrong place. And when you go by that path which is marked on the map, you end up on the cliff, and there is nothing under you. You can either jump and kill yourself or go back. So it's even wrongly marked in some places here. You have to be careful and you have to look around constantly to search for a place to go, or the way where you should go. And it's unique experience. When I'm talking about it now, I like it because it sounds romantic, sort of, but when I was hiking it, it felt frustrating and tiring and exhausting, and I had enough. On some places I was walking back and forth for like 1 hour trying to find the way up somewhere, safe way up. So that's the thing. And also it's much more vertical than you would expect. If you are used to islands like Crete or Rhodos, they are also mountains, but it's not like this. And here it is constantly up and down and rocky. So it's not, while it's not technically difficult, hiking here is exhausting, and it always took me much more than I expected. And then much map set, you know. Map set it will take me 5 hours, it took me 8. My pace was literally 2.5 kilometers per hour, because maps don't have data. People are not hiking it, so maps don't have data, those touristic maps, and you are there by your own, exploring the world like for the first time. It feels like that, at least. I was surprised that all people I spoke to here, even locals, were speaking English. when you make some research, always making research before coming somewhere. And on the internet I found out or read that people don't speak English well here, especially on the north. On the south it's touristic area, but on the north not that much. But everyone spoke English, and I found the reason later. The old lady told me from the taverna, because really most of the people here are going to USA for years and they learn English there. So really it's not any problem here. On most places you can pay by card, which is also not the problem. So with communicating you won't have any issues. You can have issues though with signal. I mean signal coverage, mobile signal coverage, because on some places there is not, and especially on the north part, I think in those 2 days I had like 1 hour window of signal. Everything else was that silence, that the signal doesn't reach there. There are only few stations here, and they are mostly here on the south part of the island. It's like really, I'm repeating it all the time, to the north nobody comes, nobody goes, you are there alone for yourself. So don't expect that you will be having a connection there, reliable connection. You really need to download the offline maps for this. I really highly recommend to download offline maps for Karpathos. As for the budget, everyone asks how much it costs. So I wrote it down. I paid 250 euros for flights. They were more expensive than there normally because very few airlines are flying here. I flew through Austrian Airlines from Vienna, but Ryanair or those regular cheaper airlines, they are not flying here. So don't expect that the Ryanair or Wizz or those will fly here. So 250 euros for flights, 4 euros for a ferry from the Karpathos town to Diafani, which is very, very cheap for like 1 hour ride in all that comfort. It's a huge ferry. It's a ferry which is coming from Rhodos. So it's a very big ferry with the bar and toilet and everything. Then I paid 35 euros for a taxi, 35 euros for Airbnb for the last night to clean myself and be fresh for the flight home. Then usually 20 euros for a double meal, including a tip sometimes. When I got more drinks or something like that, it was 25, but meals are cheap. So average 20 euros for double meal. And altogether it was about 450 euros for 8 days here on Karpathos hiking, including 1 night in accommodation and eating nearly every day in Tavernas. In the member section you'll find many extra videos from these hikes, photos, detailed maps, and because these maps screwed me up several times, I was correcting a lot, which is not in the official map, but it's in my map in the member section. So if you want to hike this island, definitely check it out, because I corrected many things. In some places there were gates which were closed, so I marked it. I marked water sources which were supposed to be there but they weren't. So also that's another thing, that in maps sometimes you find an information that there is a water source or tap water and it's not there. So I marked those. I marked the water sources which were there and those which weren't there. I marked those trails which were marked wrongly, for example to that big cave. I marked nice chapels and places where you can bivouac or sleep, and caves and viewpoints and all those things. It has 100 plus points marked, so check that out in the member section. There are also places to recommend. I would recommend definitely the whole northern part of the island. Would recommend Olympos and the mountain next to it, which is a very, very tough climb. Sometimes you are crawling on 4, but the view is probably the best from the whole island. You have the whole island below you, including that Olympos village, which is epic by itself. There is also very nice underground chapel in a cave on the northwest of the island. It's outside of the civilization too. There is only one path heading there, and you can get there by a private ferry. There are no public ferries going there, but it's an amazing place. It's a cave on the cliff next to the sea, and in that cave there are stairs going down, and there is a chapel there. Absolutely amazing. So I recommend this one. I recommended Apella Beach. I recommended a big cave on the east part, which is really amazing. In other places they would take money, you know, to get there inside, because it's like really in those big attractions. It's a huge big caves with all those stalagmites and stalactites, or the opposite. But I think that with hiking you can't make a mistake here. Everything is beautiful. Every single place where you go, it's a beautiful view. It's a beautiful place. I already planned my second hike here, actually, on the opposite coast to hike around, because this island is worth exploring more. And there are people, I met some people, like two of those people who took me by hitchhiking. One was a couple. They said they moved here after retiring, and there was a girl who moved here from Rhodos. So many people are leaving this island, but some are even coming here, and all of them said the same. This is the perfect place for meditating, for solitude, for peace, and for no stress, you know. And the cost of living is cheap here. So that's it about Karpathos. My next plan is GR58 in French Alps. I'm heading there by a car in July to make a circle, like 120 kilometers in French Alps. For September I have a booked flight to Tenerife, and then ferry to La Palma, the last Canary island, and hopefully for December Fuerteventura again. So see you on another hike.